Hi, everyone. I am Zac Greenberg with Musicians for Health, your co-host today. And with us, we have Dr. Daniel Lockwood from the Cleveland Clinic, who went to school at Eastman and New England Conservatory, got a master's in cello, and is now a very successful radiologist at Cleveland Clinic. And we're going to talk a little bit about that experience of going and exploring such a high level of education in these two seemingly vastly different worlds. So could you tell us a little more about yourself, Dr. Lockwood, Daniel? And
Sure. Yes. Thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure to be on your show. For me, it's been quite an experience making a big transition from the world of music to the world of medicine. There are some things that they have in common, but it's a pretty jarring transition as well. I think the biggest culture shock that I ever had was the Monday after I got my master's degree. I started Summer Chemistry 101 at the State University of New York to try and get some science classes under my belt, and that was a big time culture shock. But it's been quite an experience.
Yeah, because for both of those institutions were conservatories, correct? So you didn't even have a liberal arts degree. You were in straight music academia.
I have a Bachelor of Music and a Master's of Music and a medical doctor degree. Those are my degrees. Yeah, and believe it or not, it may surprise some people that, and this is still true today, that most medical schools do not have a long list of prerequisite classes that you have to take to apply to medical school. There are some basic sciences, there's some chemistry, some organic chemistry, some biology, and some physics, and that's really about it. And you have to take a test called the MCAT, the Medical College Admissions Test. But many schools are not looking for people to go to medical school who have spent their entire life getting ready to go to medical school. They're looking for people who have had more enriched backgrounds and more varied backgrounds than that. Mm-hmm. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, very interesting. I didn't know that, but it's, as an artist, it's something that I really enjoy hearing, because to me, it's so important to have these other influences and to be able to build a pool, to be able to do what you want to do at a high level and with more depth.
Right.
And so, so what was that process like of decide? It seems like you decided pretty quickly. If you write that summer after you started already doing science, when did you decide that you wanted?
So my master's degree was a 2-year degree, and basically I made the decision that I had to do something else about a third of the way into my second year. Mm-hmm. And I finished the degree because I thought that it would be a better thing for me. It would be better for my commitment to the school that I was going to. I also had a job at the school where I was, that I was attending at New England Conservatory. And, I just thought in general, it would be better to finish that degree before doing something and not leave it unfinished. Turned out that was a very good decision because, getting into medical school still is a competitive process, and people are looking at your record and they don't want to see unfinished stuff mm-hmm. on your resume. And at that time, really, it wasn't a split-second decision saying, I want to stop being a musician and I want to go to medical school. It was, I'm burnt out on this. I need to try something else for a while. And looking back on it and looking back and seeing, hearing the description of, the Monday after you get your master's degree, you're in Chemistry 101. It sounds like you knew exactly what was going to happen every step of the way. But that's, as usual, that's how it looks in retrospect. But when you're actually there living it at the moment, it's, well, I'm going to do this for a while now. And that's where it led me. So
yeah, beautiful. That's so amazing. It's so really beautiful to hear that, because I feel like as artists or anybody who's devoting to higher education, it's so easy for us to, once we start down that path, feel like, well, we've made this decision and now this is our life. And can be really difficult to find space or strength to be able to just start that over, but also acknowledging that you're not really starting over, that you've grown from all of this other past experience and stuff. And it's allowing, as you're saying, that medical schools are even looking at, to have this enriched background as a person with character and be able to offer something.
Definitely, they are looking for people with some form of life experience before they start medical school, and people with different life experiences too. So, and that really was helpful that was the case for me, and that they weren't just looking for people with a laser focus from day one. And really, I think what you said is absolutely true about feeling once you've made a decision to start something, like that's what it is, and that's the pathway, and that's the way you have to go. That is not true. There's a lot of ways to step off the path and make your own way at any time you want to, and in many different ways too.
Yeah, I feel again, I know for myself, as I studied upright bass for so long, and then have now developed into more composing and expanding the Musicians for Health nonprofit and working on all these different platforms, that sometimes it can feel like I'm almost cheating on my instrument, or I'm doing something, because we get so used to daily practice and this thing, we get addicted to it in such a way that it's literally
Totally.
when we put it down, even if we know on a deep set that it's for something bigger or something that will eventually benefit that, or allow us to grow, it can feel like trying to let go of an addiction.
Well, I can tell you, to this day, it's less frequent now than it was 20 years ago, but to this day, I still do sometimes have anxiety dreams where the scenario in the dream is always the same. I've got a big performance. There's a big performance, and nobody knows. I haven't touched my instrument in 2 years, but I still have to go out there on stage and play something in front of a bunch of people. And it sounds crazy, of course, 23 years after I made this transition. But it's deep down in there somewhere.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, that's the classic story, the classic dream that I feel a lot of people get, where but for school, for the opposite, instead of it being this art and this passion, something that people generally think of as being a joy, we think of, I get it for, I didn't finish my Spanish test, right? So I'm not gonna be able to graduate high school now. Or my math, I have a math test tomorrow. I didn't realize I flunked that class. And it's generally so much more academic. So it's really interesting to hear that.
I did realize, that I had reached a transition point with those dreams in the middle of my training as a radiologist, when I started noticing that the people in the audience for this performance in the dream were all of the people training me medically. Like, oh no, not only can I not play, but they're all going to know I can't do anything anymore.
Yeah.
It was like the most stressful parts of both worlds coming together.
So besides
you and your dreams.
Yeah. So besides your dreams, what is your relationship with music now? Are you still practicing? I know that you have a family and that they've grown into music.
Work is busy. We have 2 boys who are high school age. That keeps us busy as well. And as we sort of discussed a little bit before the interview, for me personally, it's difficult to find a way to do the music thing casually in a way that it's still fulfilling, to do those 2 things at the same time. And I know everybody's different, and they have their own relationship with how casual things can be and still be fulfilling for them. But for me, that's been a real stumbling block. That and just plain time. I mean, it takes a lot of time to keep the instrument up, and time is one thing that you can't make more of, no matter how hard you try.
Yeah. And something we were talking about before this also that kind of ties into some of the other things we were saying is that I know, again, I feel like I spent so many hours and gave so much time and energy and respect to this instrument, to the upright bass, to a fretless instrument that I have to worry about bowing and intonation and all of these things that come with it. That if I hadn't advanced quite as far as I did, that maybe I wouldn't feel this anxiety about the instrument or about music, or about, if I had just taken it to a level of, I can play with my friends, that's great. and allowed it to be a hobby, right? And I think that once, at least for me, once I took it to the next level and made that conscious decision of this is going to be some sort of higher exploration of education now, that I kind of had to let go of that aspect of being able to engage with it as a hobby or just fun, without it being more microscopic and,
For sure.
hours in.
For sure. Yeah. And, there's many things that I do now that are not musical that I'm would nowhere near be considered accomplished in, and I do them casually and I really enjoy them. I like to exercise, but I'm not an Olympic athlete. I like to cook, but I don't have a Michelin star yet. And all sorts of things where, you just do it because it's fun and because it's enjoyable, and there's not a huge amount of self-criticism that goes along with it. Yeah, and I'm in no danger of burning out from cooking, for example.
Yeah, I know. I think that they'll be giving out a couple more Michelin stars after this quarantine. I think that they'll be making house.
I'll be looking for mine for sure.
Yeah, same. We've been baking,
Yes.
baking exploration. Well, Daniel, thank you so much for being with us, and thank you for your perspective, and
Of course.
thank you for your story of being able to grow and to be acceptant of change and not having to believe this addiction that we get into of art. Part of this whole mental health conversation that's happening in art right now, a big part of it that is just starting to be addressed is like that we get addicted to our arts, and sometimes it's not healthy for the individual, for the art form, or for just growth. So it's really beautiful to hear your story and that you've been able to find your path. So
Well, it's my pleasure to join you.
Yeah, thank you again for sharing. And I'm excited to get a beer when this is all over.
Okay, sounds good to me.
Sounds good. Thanks again.
Sure thing.